Now then, welcome back to a kind of a sad episode from Hypermine Unstable. This is, unlucky for some, episode 13, the finale of this series. Now it is after long debate with myself and lots of thinking about it, lots of thinking about it, that I'm going to call an end to this series. Now, there's plenty of reasons why, and I want to go through a few of those reasons with you now. New villagers. I want to also show you a few bits and pieces that I've been working on while we're talking about it as well. For the record, for those of you that are just tuning in to find out why or how this came about, it is with regret that this series is now over. This is the last episode. And I am not leaving Hypermine as a server. I am just leaving the Hypermine Unstable modded server. I've had enough of this particular modded Minecraft series, and I will explain why further. I will still be doing Hypermine. I will still be doing Hypermine for Hypermine days. I'll still be doing Hypermine for UHCs and still be doing for Hypermine for the vanilla server stuff. I will still be doing Hypermine. I will still be involved in the Hypermine community, and I will still be a Hyperminer. But this series right here, this is the last episode. Okay? So nothing bad's happened or anything like that. Nothing to worry about. Nothing bad. But there's been a few things, a few reasons why I don't feel like I can play on this particular mod pack on this particular server anymore. The main thing, I think, is that it's fairly inactive. There are over 32 Hyperminers in Hypermine community, in the chat at least. There are over 32 Hyperminers, and we've got one Hyperminer over here, Ector, who is obviously still building out, still doing things, still making good his episodes for you guys. I will put links in the description for those that are producing content right now, and so you can catch up and continue watching Hypermine modded with them. There's Ector. There is also, just over the hill here, our newest member, Wolfstorm, or Make It Rain, who has a little base just over here, but recently moved out to go into the desert village, I believe. And his Twitch stream is probably where you'll catch more information about what he's doing. He was around here. Here we go. Yeah, this little bit over here. He's got a little base over here, and I believe he moved out of here. This is his starter home, his starter hole. So he's moved out. And then I think Run Wild is on here somewhere as well. And I think that Ballantine made a start over here. Lapis made a start over here. I think that's Ballantine's start over there. Lapis made a start over here. But then, out of the 30-odd players that we have that call themselves Hyperminers, the majority of them have stuck to vanilla. The vanilla server is still very busy. The vanilla server is still very active. Lots of people are still doing lots of big projects on the vanilla server. But the modded server, not so much. Not so much. So it's kind of lonely on here. Like, I've got nobody with me. The occasional time that I do see somebody else on here with me, they're producing content as well, which is good. But there's very few other Hyperminers doing anything on the server. So that is point number one. That it's a very inactive modded series because most of the Hyperminers are dedicated to their vanilla Hypermine series. Their vanilla Hypermine streams. And not many are playing Hypermine modded, either streaming or YouTube. So there's that. That's point number one. Point number two has been the straw that broke the camel's back in a way. Point number two is that in the last stream, or the last video you had from me, I had got all of this kind of stuff set up, and I'd got my angel ring sorted, I'd got my power grid sorted, but I had also claimed and chunk loaded using Feed the Beast utilities this area, so that I could have my power system running wherever I went in the world, so that I could have my quarry available to me anywhere I wanted in the world. And I wanted to do a lot in the nether, quarrying in the nether to get a load of quartz and stuff. And also there was the ability to fly. The ability to fly, thanks to the angel wing, requires this particular chunk that we're in now to be loaded at all times. And I can't get that chunk loaded. That's the problem. The Feed the Beast utilities had chunk loaders. Feed the Beast utilities had chunk loaders, and also Extra Utilities 2 has chunk loaders. I think the chunk loader in here, I want to actually make a chunk loader, but I need to show you why it's more difficult. Now, the Extra Utilities 2 chunk loading ward requires a under contract villager and an Eye of Redstone. The Eye of Redstone's easy enough to make, but the under contract villager is pretty difficult to get. Not impossible, but that's why I've got some villagers set up there. I was working on it over the weekend. I was working on getting towards that stage to try and recover from the loss that I had. It felt very much like there was like the Hypermine Day stream on Wednesday, and then I had pretty much the next day coming back on, and everything I had achieved, everything that I was relying upon so that I can continue the series the way I wanted to continue it and do the things I wanted to do, everything had gone because the chunk loading system had disappeared. The Feed the Beast utilities had been removed, and there was no real discussion as to whether this should happen, why it should happen, or anything like that. It was just literally I logged on the next day and it was gone, and that set me back a few days, basically, because then I would have to go and make this chunk loading ward, getting this villager under contract in a lasso and all that kind of stuff to make it work so that I could continue. The sudden change with no discussion kind of was a sore point for me, really. I don't like to be kept out of the loop, and for the reasons that I was given, I was not pleased with the reasons I was given. Let's just put it that way. So I spent the weekend kind of muttering to myself and wondering what I was going to do instead, and thinking, right, well, if I can't use the chunk loading from Feed the Beast utilities to get on with the projects I wanted to do, which were basically taking advantage of the Feed the Beast utilities chunk loading and going off, getting some quarried up, some quartz, and getting some other bits and pieces done so that I could play around with a mod that I wanted to play around with. Now instead I've found myself that I've got to do this thing with villagers, and so I've got to get a contract on a villager. Contract for a villager, which is this thing. Okay, so I needed feathers, paper, black dye, and glass bottles. Shouldn't really be a problem, apart from the fact that I didn't have any chickens. Now I've got this little chicken thing set up here so that I could get some feathers, and I've managed to get a few feathers from them so far, just by firing the eggs off into here to get more chickens so that I could get more eggs, so that I could eventually come over here and just chop a few of these guys up and get the feathers to make the contract. And I set up that little villager area upstairs to sort out the contract as well. And now I also need to go and do some squid killing because I don't have any black dye. And I've got some paper and I can make the glass bottles. That's easy enough. So I'm going to go and do that now. I also installed these travel anchors so that make it a little bit easier than climbing up and down the ladder. But I can fly around this area. I mean, this is the area that I wanted to do a lot of building in. I wanted to build all my farms out. I did a lot of prep work for it. I did a lot of stuff that I wanted to do. But the next thing, the very next thing I wanted to do was work on the storage system. The storage, is it this stuff? We've got to find it now. Refined storage, that was it. refined storage. So with refined storage, I was going to need to get a lot of this quartz-enriched iron, which was nether quartz and iron. So I was going to need to do a lot of quarrying to get a load of quartz and a load of iron from the nether. Well, quartz from the nether and iron from normal quarrying, of course, to make all of these different storage blocks and bits and pieces and things that I wanted to play around with that was all nice and new for this. Like quartz-enriched iron was everywhere, storage thing, quartz-enriched iron. I'd already got my silicon production sorted out. Quite clear glass is also lots and lots of silicon in the Ender IO to make the quite clear glass in the first place. So I needed a lot of quartz, and that was like my next stage in order to get into this storage, which reminded me a lot of Applied Energistics, which is one of my favourite storage mods. So I wanted to get the storage mod, refined storage, all up and running as fast as possible, so that then all of my cool farms and my power supply and all that could go into making automated farming and storage in a big sorting system, storage system. And I wanted more of that so that I could then make the place look cool and dedicate this farmland to the players on the server. But there aren't many players on the server, so that was kind of a null point for that as well. So never mind. Let's see if we can find some squid. There's some squid. Let's go and kill some squid while we're talking. So yeah, that was a big issue for me. Suddenly having to go down another couple of progression lines, another couple of different tracks in order to make good the simple idea that I wanted to have a chunk loaded setup. And so over the weekend I was working out how I could still achieve that, how I could do that. And at the same time, I feel like I've got quite a messy startup. We got some sugarcane over here. Kind of a messy startup because of all the different things and changes and bits and pieces in the unstable mod pack. So I had spent the weekend wondering what I was going to do, how I was going to continue this series now that my initial plan had been set back a ways by having to collect sugarcane and ink sacks and feathers. I know, it doesn't sound like much, does it? It doesn't sound like much. But it was just another thing, just one of those things that I was kind of stuck on. Didn't really like the idea, and the way it was done I didn't like. So I tried to bite my tongue and not talk about it too much. But still, this is how you make the contracts, people. There we go. I'm going to show you the contracts just to see if we can make it easy. And I'm going to use this in the next series, so it should be okay. Right, there's a contract. Let's make a few if I can. Yeah, I can make 4 contracts. That's good. Throw the rest of the stuff away in there, out the way. Thank you. So, not too difficult, not too hard, eh? Not too hard. Being forced to do it, though, that means I've had to do it right now. Also, the messy start that I had, the whole setup over here with the forestry tree farm. At the end of it, I'm kind of upset with how it lags me when I get too close and it's running, and how I set it up initially to do these advanced generators and stuff, which you'll probably have seen in the highlights of the last episode. Just strange to me. This is like running amazingly well, but then I'm not doing anything with the quarry right now. So I got all my power system set up in the last episode with all of this ready during the Hypermine day to start quarrying off in distant places to get all the resources I needed to do the storage system, so that I could bring the storage system down here and organise things a little bit better. So while I've been messing around and changing things around, just trying to take my mind off the fact that I'm in a mess and I've got to do some new stuff, and I needed those villagers to set themselves up right. While I was kind of figuring all that out, I realised that, well, why am I doing it? Why am I doing it all? Well, I do it all for you. I do it all for the viewers. I do it all for the views. I'm not really doing this for Hypermine as such. I don't do it for Hypermine. I do it for you guys. Now, do any of you want a contract? No notch, please, no. Villager is known as a Fletcher, being of sound mind and body, blah, 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 blah. The object is destroyed. The universe ends. Does that mean you're under contract now? No, 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 no. Getting bored, standing around in limbo, making weird noises, blah, 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 blah. Signed. It's not signed. Okay, so he's not under contract. Are you under contract? No deal, he says. No deal. Yay, he's okay. The leather worker signs the deal. Okay, so the leather worker is now a leather worker under contract. Okay, so that should make me the thing. Right? Okay, so that's good. So, the messy startup I've had, I think I could do better, and I've been trying to redo the base. As you can see, I've been working on things. I've been expanding, and I've been changing things around, and I've been trying to redesign stuff that I've been messing around with, because I kind of rushed through a few things, not really knowing where I wanted to be. Hey, chicken, you're not supposed to be there, and you're not supposed to be there. Get out of my life. There. Have that in there. There we go. Right, so, yeah, I really, really wanted to be able to sort this all out and get it all sorted, but the setbacks and everything else and the inactiveness of just being on my own on the server kind of all put a dampener on it all. Now, as you know, this is the unstable pack. Feed the Beast Unstable. Feed the Beast Unstable. I'm going to munch an apple. Thank you very much. Feed the Beast Unstable is fairly limited to what it currently has. I mean, in the last update, 4.2.2, they basically updated to Minecraft version 110.2, and they added some new mods. Genderstree, Super Crafting Frame, Environmental Tech, Roots, Better Than Bunnies, Audict, Solar Flux Reborn, and Simple Barrels. All sounding pretty cool. But they also removed extra utilities to chunk loaders and said use Feed the Beast utilities for the chunk loading. So there I was. No other option. They had removed it from the game. So there was no making of the contracts. There was no making of the chunk loaders because they'd removed it from the game. It wasn't there. It wasn't available. Let's get that sorted out. Right. So I want one of those. I want one of those. And what was the other thing I needed? I needed one of those. Okay, one of those. There we go. So yeah. So there wasn't really an option for me to do this before. And then in the latest update, the current update, well, it takes the villager out. That's cool. In the current update, they re-enabled it. In 4.2.3, they've re-enabled it all. So if I place this, chunk loading right there, that's now going to drain power from my setup here at a power drain of 8. These guys make a fair bit, but that's okay. So the power drain of 8 is in there. So now this chunk is loaded, which means the power is always loaded, but it's eaten up another 8, which means I need to expand the power supply here and all that kind of stuff, which I will do. If I didn't have Feed the Beast utilities chunk loading in the first place, I would do this. I would have done it. I would have done it already. It would have been one of the first things on my list of things to do. Get the villagers sorted. But because I had Feed the Beast utilities, chunk loaders, I built the base in chunks, and I had all of this kind of setup, and I had it all chunk loaded, and things like that happened. And yeah, it's all kind of weird. I just think that the limited Feed the Beast unstable pack is not where I want to be at. I don't want to be investing all of my time doing the things that I could be doing in other packs, more interesting packs with the same core mod group, with the same ability to achieve things, with the same base ideas, with the same things that I can play with, the same mods I can play with, but also so much more. Feed the Beast Unstable is a very small, limited mod pack that goes through many changes. And the reason I am playing it is only because it is a Hypermine modded server. That's the only reason I'm playing it. That's the only reason. It was decided for me. I had a hand in the discussion, so I'm happy about that. I said, yes, let's just get on with it. Let's just do something modded for Hypermine. and then 5 or 6 people got started on the server, and we haven't seen anybody else, because the majority of the Hyperminers, all of which, big love, plenty of respect, but they don't want to do modded. They don't want to do this modded series, so therefore, out of the 30-odd Hyperminers that we have available, majority that are doing content creation play on the vanilla server, and just a smaller few of us were playing on this server. So I may as well just say I'm not doing it for Hypermine, I'm doing it for myself. So I may as well go and find something that's going to make me happy, so that I can show you all the wonderful things in 1.10 Minecraft modded environments. That I can show you all the cool things that are coming out mod-wise, without being limited to what is in the Feed the Beast Unstable pack. So thank you all very much for watching. I'm sorry that episode 13, unlucky for some. If you were enjoying the series, unlucky, I'm sorry. But there is a new series starting to replace this series. It is another 1.10 modded Minecraft series. It is another server-based series. But on that server, there are lots of players who are making content for you. I'm not going to advertise it during a Hypermine video, but it's coming soon, and you will know it when you see it. I thank you very much for watching this series. Don't forget, if you're a true Hypermine fan, to keep checking out my vanilla episodes, and keep up with the Hypermine Day live streams and all that kind of stuff, which I will only be doing from the vanilla server from now on. And I'm sorry if you're going to miss this series, but I promise you that the series that will be replacing it has a lot more potential. It has a lot more people playing on the server. It has a lot more YouTubers making content. It has a lot more mods in it. And it is bang, smack, crack, down, up to date with the latest mod releases. So we should be able to do all sorts of fun, funky stuff. So thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.